So what we're going to have a look at today is how we find the mean of a set of scores. And this is the symbol we use to represent mean. Now sometimes people call it average, but the proper term is mean. So to find the mean of a data set, we add up all the scores or total all the scores, then divide by how many number of scores there are in that data set. So writing that down, the mean is the total of the scores divided by the number of scores. Using our symbol, just written it in a different way as a fraction. So let's go back to Rachel and we'll have a look at her 12 spelling tests that she did out of 20. Remember before our lowest score was 10 and our highest score was 20, but we're going to have a look at finding the mean. So we're going to add up all of these scores and then divide by the number of scores. And there are 12 scores because she did 12 spelling tests. And when we do that, just do it straight on the calculator using your fraction template, and we get 15.91666 repeater. And I think on your calculator the last digit will be a 7 because it rounds that last one off. But it's 0.916 repeater, and as a fraction that's 15 and 11/12. So that's how we find the mean from a small data set. So what we'll have a look at now is when we're finding the mean from a large data set. So we'll go back to Rachel's class in the last test, and we can see that our smallest score was 13, our highest score was 19. But what we want to do is find the total of all the scores divided by the number of scores that there are altogether. So we're going to call our score column the X column. So from 13 to 19, and we're going to call our frequency column the F column. And what we're going to do is introduce an extra column into our table. We're going to call that our frequency times our score column. So what that means is we take our frequency of 1 and our score of 13, and we times them together and we get 13. So that tells us that that one person who scored 13 has got a total of 13. So we'll do that for our second part. We've got a score of 14 and 3 people got that. So 14 lots of 3 means those 3 people got a total of 42. So these 3 people all scored 15. So their total will be 15 times 3, which is 45. And we can do that for the rest of our table. So these 5 people got a total of 80. These 8 people a total of 136. These 8 people a total of 144. And these 2 people a total of 38. So normally we wouldn't have all that working out written in that column. So we'll get rid of that working out and just have our totals there. So that's how we work out that F times X column, or sometimes it's just written as Fx without the time sign in between, just using algebra. But we do need to know how many scores there were, so how many students were in the class. To do that, we add up our frequency column, so the sum of our frequency column, and there are 30 students in the class. But we also need the total of all the scores, so 13, 42, 45, etc. So we're finding the sum or the total of the Fx column, and that'll tell us the total of all the scores, which is 498. So now, to find the mean of all of that data set, of those 30 students in Rachel's class for that final test, we take the total of all the scores and divide by the number of scores. Just to write it another way, it's the sum of the Fx column, that'll tell us the total of all the scores, over the sum of the frequency column, which is how many scores there are altogether. So let's do that working out. When we do that, the sum of all the scores is 498. The number of scores is 30, so 498 over 30, and we find that we have a mean of 16.6, or again we could write that as a fraction and have 16 3/5. So that's how we find the mean of a large data set.